Even after 23 years, Morrowind's modding scene is still going strong, with multiple mod teams working to create massive new land mods for this classic Elder Scrolls title. The longest running and largest of these mod projects is Tamriel Rebuilt, which aims to create the entirety of Morrowind's mainland, and they've been steadily releasing new zones, quests, and more since 2006. The Elder Scrolls 3 was conceived as a much bigger game than the one that we got, with the earliest plans being to have the game set in the Somerset Isles. As development continued, the setting switched to Morrowind, to allow for the game to be a little bit more weird. Giant volcano, creepy bug enemies, mushrooms everywhere, stuff like that. Once this new location for the game had been set, Bethesda had planned on creating the entire province. And nearly a year before its 2002 release, it became apparent that this would not be the case. Instead, Morrowind would ship with the island of Vardenfell as our main playable space, and would later get an expansion adding the Isle of Solstheim, and another that added the mainland city of Mournhold, but without the ability to leave the walled-off city and explore the mainland. When it became clear that Morrowind would focus instead on the island of Vardenfell, a group of mod authors came together with the idea to build out the missing mainland, with the even more ambitious goal of someday making all of Tamriel available. And thus, the Tamriel Rebuilt mod was born. To recount the entire history of the mod would take way too long, and it would practically be its own documentary at this point. But over these 22 odd years, the mod has been reworked, updated, and has seen many incremental releases, with each new release focusing on a particular zone of Morrowind's mainland, often featuring a new central city, with the surrounding area filled with ruins, caves, dungeons, and countless quests. This map shows the most recent progress on the mod, with the gray areas being the vanilla game, white being the playable zones in Tamriel Rebuilt, and the tan being the remaining work-in-progress zones. Some of these unfinished areas can still be wandered through, but they might suffer from poorer performance, and they might not be fully mapped out either. Each major release for Tamriel Rebuilt has come with its own title and theme, with cover art made in the style of Morrowind's main menu. The most recent release, having come out in May 2025, is titled Grasping Fortune, set in the Hlalu capital of Narsis, along with the surrounding Coronati Basin and Shipal Shin regions. You will need a couple things in order to play, with the biggest requirement being the Tamriel Data mod, a massive asset pack that includes models, textures, and more for the various mod teams looking to recreate Tamriel. And while not strictly required, I did use Morrowind Code Patch and Morrowind Graphics Extender. And of course, you will need the Blood Moon and Tribunal expansion packs. Once everything was properly installed and configured, I could begin my latest adventure. Starting at the Ebonheart docks, just south of Vivec, I was able to catch a boat to Old Ebonheart, the largest imperial city in Morrowind. The fastest way to reach the new city of Narsis was to make my way to the Mages Guild here, and pay for teleportation to Narcis's guild hall. But I could have chosen to walk between the two cities, had I wanted to. I did spend a little bit of time talking to the mages here in the Narsis Guild Hall, who were able to give some assignments and talk about the city as well as some recent news. One thing they kept bringing up was how the Archmage of the Hall had recently gone missing. I took a guild assignment to find a missing book, which a not-so-bright apprentice managed to lose while experimenting with new spells. This quest would take me out of the city, so I decided to put it on the back burner for just a little bit. Tamriel Rebuilt adds numerous factions, with the mainland chapters of the Imperial Mages and Fighters Guilds being just two of the ones that you can expect to join. The city of Narsis is huge, likely the largest in the mod so far, divided into several quarters, including the Foreign Quarter, Council, Market, St. Veloth, Waterfront, and Old Quarters. The city has a lot of locations, with various merchants, an arena, a sewer system running underground, various corner clubs, and more. Since this is the capital of House Hlalu's holdings, I decided to go to the Measure Hall, located in the Council Quarter. I hadn't joined any of the great houses on this character, so I was able to join House Hlalu here, starting off as a simple layman. This is the great house known for their emphasis on commerce, seeing themselves as the most modern of the Dunmer, and they're the most imperial friendly. Unlike the Reterans who have pledged themselves to the ideals of honor through combat, or the Telvanni who believe in their magical supremacy, the Hlalu care about gold over all else. So quite a few other quests will be less focused on combat, but rather on investigating disputes, and doing what you can to help the day-to-day operations run a bit more smoothly. My first assignment for House Hlalu was to settle an old debt, with Belrin Hlalu of the 7th family having recently found documents showing that a lesser family never paid off a debt from over 120 years ago. Traveling to the nearby village of Sidrathim, you'll confront the head of the Sidralo family, who's annoyed by Belrin's pettiness in the matter. You'll have an option to demand the gold that's owed, or accept an artifact that would be of interest to the 7th house. I took the artifact thinking that would be the right decision, only to find out that it was a fake. Fortunately, Belrin found it funny, and still rewarded me for my efforts. My second assignment really served to remind me just how underhanded the Hlalu are, and for those who are looking to play a more chivalrous character, House Hlalu might not be your cup of tea. I was told to break up a strike, as the court clerks were looking to unionize, and honestly, the clerks were in the right. House Hlalu had just passed a decree where the clerks could be paid in scrips rather than in gold, which was obviously hurting them financially. Since it would look bad to simply kill the leader of the group, I was instructed to identify the leader and then retrieve a blank payslip so that we could forge it and make them look dirty. Making my way to the court offices, I was able to bribe one of the clerks, who identified a Khajiit named Saravi as the labor leader. I then headed down to the Measure Hall's archives in order to find the blank payslip, paying the archivist 50 gold in order to take one. And this is one of the many ways that the mod reminds you that they really tried to make this feel as frustrating as OG Morrowind could be at times. The archivist told me to find the slip on the shelf furthest to the right, and I was looking up and down for ages, to the point where I was convinced that this was a my right or your right situation where he was giving me bad directions. Finally, I found the single remaining slip, nestled between two books right on the shelf where he said it would be. It took me longer than I care to admit. Alvinu, who serves as your main quest giver for House Hlalu, will go ahead and forge the slip, asking you to plant it on Saravi's desk without her noticing, and then telling a guard that she's dirty. Reporting back, Alvinu is more than happy with your success, rewarding you for your efforts, as you sit here and think about what you did to people who just wanted to be paid fairly. Taking a slight break from being a union buster, I decided to go out into the wilds to try and find that missing book for the Mages Guild. The apprentice had given me pretty detailed instructions, as well as a marker for a ruin to help me orient myself a bit. When I think exploring Morrowind, I think grasslands, swamps, and lava fields. But the region around Narsis is quite unique in that sense, with rocky red canyons and mountain passes. Having levitation spells or enchantments really comes in handy when navigating the region. The apprentice told me that he lost a spell tome while out practicing spells, as he freaked out when he accidentally cast Frenzy on a Skyrender, a new hornet-like enemy that we see in this release. You'll have to head into their hive and make your way to the Queen's Chamber, where you'll find the book, alongside a corpse with a coded message. The message is unrelated, but it bears the mark of the East Empire Company. They do have an office in the Waterfront Quarter, so it's likely tied to one of their faction quests. I brought the missing tome back to the Mages Guild, with the librarian being very grateful that I did. Ready to continue in the world of business, I made my way back to the Measure Hall, where I was told that a shopkeep in the market quarter had been robbed by the Kimona Tong. Speaking with the merchant, he noted that a Nord and Dunmer robbed him, taking his gold and his finest glassware. When I found a Kimona Tong member, they laughed it off, as they would never be caught dead working with an outlander. Instead, the robbery had been the work of a rival group, the John Nada Syndicate. The Kimona Tong were more than happy to point me to their hideout, where I was able to kill the two thieves and retrieve the stolen goods. And I reimbursed the merchant for the stolen gold for good measure. And I was warned that this would not be the last we'd see of the John Nada Syndicate. With a couple hours of playing under my belt, I was starting to get a better feel for the city, and was able to navigate it a little better than when I was first starting off. Narsis feels bigger than Vivec by a good margin, part of it being that it's much more spread out, compared to the more condensed and vertical cantons of Vivec City. One thing that I really enjoyed was the variety of quests and content that I found, something that Tamriel Rebuilt has always done well. It's always felt like a very natural extension of Morrowind in that sense, doing an incredible job of matching the original game's tone, quest design, and so on. I had one quest at the Hlalu Theater Company, where an actor had run off with what the director assumed was stage fright, having to then help out in the play's rehearsal while still trying to figure out what had spooked the actor so much. I later became a fighter in the Narsis arena, where you and your fellow arena fighters are pitted against one another. Just be careful though, as these aren't fights to the death. Most of my time was spent in the city of Narsis, because there's really just that much to do there. And I can only imagine how many hours I might get out of the Grasping Fortune update if I wanted to try and play most of its content. I haven't played Tamriel Rebuilt in ages, not since my Morrowind modded playthrough back in 2018, which at the time had added the city of Old Ebonheart. The amount of hours that I might get out of the rest of the mod, going back and replaying some of the content that I had done previously, seeing the improvements made to some of the older cities and so on. It's crazy to me just how big this mod is. And it's funny, because I find myself returning to Morrowind a bit more often nowadays. A few months ago, I had gotten back into it, as I was really enjoying the first release from Project Cyrodiil, which added the port city of Anvil and part of its coastal region. I would be more than content to just play these massive mods and never touch the vanilla areas again, and it would still serve as one of the best Morrowind experiences ever. I was a latecomer to Morrowind, but I've truly come to love it. The Tamriel Rebuilt team is already working on their next major expansion, titled Poison Song, which will add the regions surrounding the city of Almalexia, and it'll introduce the very first quests in the new House Indoril faction. Alongside this, work is being done on the Wealth Beyond Measure expansion, which will complete the southwest portion of the map and wrap up the House Hlalu content that we were first introduced to in Grasping Fortune. I'm definitely going to be keeping better track of their updates from now on. I really like the release cadence and the choice to release the mod zone by zone. It's something they had to decide fairly early on, but it means that players can get these new content drops every year or so. In the end, I think Tamriel Rebuilt is a masterclass in modding, and whether you're a newcomer to Morrowind or a seasoned player, I think it's very much worth playing. But that's gonna be all for today. As always, thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, check out the Patreon or the YouTube memberships, both of which get early access to most new videos, with the Patreon versions being ad-free. And make sure to check out the streams at twitch.tv/0periodproductions. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.